The first one was taken in 1977. This one is from 1982. It's still on there. Yes. Now I think there's a good amount of money in this. Great, Dave. Yes, he is the son of a legend, and a legend in his own right. Few people can picture the life he has lived. His name was linked to a whole field from the moment he was born. The ghost of his father followed him around and shaped his life. It was like a cloud that he could never get away from. Hank Jr. has been in the news for decades, whether it's because of his #1 songs, his almost fatal accident, or his unapologetic issues that made fans split down the middle. But now, the news is making people wonder about things they didn't expect. Reports and rumors are going around, and people all over the world want to know what's going on with Hank Williams Jr. Is this another story of victory, or is there tragedy just out of sight? Tonight, we go into more depth about the shocking new information. We also look back at the rough road that led Hank Jr. to this point and talk about why the news stories that are breaking today may be the most important of his career. Born into a family where singing was more than just fun, it was a way of life. Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams Sr. His father was already known as one of the most important and famous people in country music history. However, when he sadly died at the age of 29, his young son took on the responsibility of carrying on the Williams name. Hank Jr. was pushed by managers, promoters, and even his own family to play a role he barely knew from the time he was a kid. He first went on stage when he was 8 years old, singing his dad's songs, an unsettling memory of the past that drew people in but made him question who he was. People thought he was Hank's son, always there to remind us of what we lost too soon. In real life, though, he was just a boy, trying to find his own style. People who didn't like him often said he just looked like his father. He couldn't get away from the similarities, no matter how well he sang or how much energy he had. Having to deal with this heritage was both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, it made him famous right away, but on the other, it bound him to a life of expectation and took away his freedom to be himself. Around the time he turned 13, Hank Jr. started to fight against the mold that had been put on him. He liked his dad's honky-tonk style and the raw power of southern rock, blues, and outlaw country as well. He got the idea to make his own way from artists like Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash. Over time, he started to mix these styles with his own fiery personality. He did want to respect his dad, but he also wanted to get rid of the thought that his dad was just a shadow. The music business still wasn't ready to let him be himself. Record execs kept telling him to play songs from his dad's collection, forcing him to repeat what others do. He walked a fine line between custom and new ideas for years, trying to find the courage to be different. Then, fate took over. Before Hank Jr. became the artist he was always meant to be, he came very close to dying and fought hard to stay alive. Long before that day, though, he had to live with a father who was both his best friend and worst enemy, a man who left behind both a crown and a chain. The world wanted Hank Williams Sr. back, but they got Hank Williams Jr., who fought, lived, and became a hero in his own right. Before the mid-1970s, Hank Williams Jr. had been trying to make his own way for years, but one day in 1975 would change the course of his life and work forever. Hank Jr. slipped and fell more than 500 feet down the side of Ajax Peak in Montana on August 8 that year. The accident was very bad. His face and head were broken, and doctors at first didn't think he would even make it through the night. Both his body and his mind were broken by the fall, and he lived on the edge of death for weeks. Doctors worked hard and did many surgeries to rebuild Hank Jr.'s face, but the damage was so bad that he would never look the same again. He was stuck in hospital beds for months while he healed and couldn't do the thing he loved most, act. But Hank Jr.'s strong will to live wouldn't let him go quietly, even when he was feeling very sad. People who knew him well remember the fire in his eyes, a determination that seemed to grow stronger with each setback. Slowly, against all chances, he started to get better. Fans were shocked when he finally came back into the public eye. He showed up with dark glasses and a beard to hide the scars that had changed his look forever. And this new picture would become his symbol in the end. But he had scars all over his body. They were very close to his heart. He almost died that fall, but he lived. It gave him a new viewpoint that would shape the honest music he made after that. Also, it meant the end of his fight. To follow his dad around. He had to start over after the accident, both physically and musically. He stopped singing only Hank Sr. songs and became more of his own person by accepting the southern rock and outlaw country influences that had been burning inside him the whole time. The voice Hank Jr. had when he came out of the ruins was rough and angry. He wasn't like his father, but like a man who had fought death and stay living. The accident changed everything in his life. It was a tragedy that could have finished his story, but it started a new one. Hank Williams Jr. wasn't just the famous singer's son anymore. He lived, he fought, and soon he would be a star in his own right. After that fall, fans didn't see him as the boy copying his father, but as a man who had been through hell and came back with something to say. Because his life would change so much, his music would never sound the same again. When Hank Williams Jr. finally came back to the public after his almost fatal fall, he was not the same person everyone knew. The boyish image of the son carrying on his father's work was gone. In its place was a picture of a tough, scarred, and determined fighter. It wasn't like this singer was stuck between trying to sound like Hank Sr. and finding his own style. This was a man who had faced death and come back with a fire that could not be put out. This was Hank Jr.'s first look that would become famous. Dark glasses, a beard, and a cowboy hat. But what was even more important was the new sound he brought with him. His style was a mix of southern rock, blues, and outlaw country. It was raw and electric, and it was all his. Songs like Family Tradition, which came out in 1979, made it clear that he was independent and refusing to be ruled by anyone else. In the lyrics, he asked his fans if they wanted to know why he drank, smoked, and lived the way he did. He then told them straight out that it was a family practice. People who were ready for something real, raw, and not cared about meeting the Nashville mold liked the song because it was both an admission and a rallying cry. All of a sudden, Hank Jr. was no longer following in his dad's footsteps. He was firmly in the spotlight of himself. Not many artists could match his hot run in the late 1970s and early 1980s. He put out a number of popular records such as Whiskey Bent, Hellbound, and Habits Old and New, which cemented his position as one of the most honest voices of his time. His song, A Country Boy Can Survive, which came out in 1981, was more than just a hit, was a statement of strength that matched his own life. It was about the toughness and freedom of people in rural America, and fans related to the defiant spirit of the song. In addition to the songs, his live shows became famous. Hank Jr. played the stage with the confidence of a man who knew he had won his spot. He was known for his energy, swagger, and rebellious attitude. In the 1980s, he was one of the biggest names in country music. The Country Music Association and the Academy of Country Music both named him Artist of the Year. He wasn't just following in his father's footsteps, he was paving the way for himself in the field. He was part of the Outlaw Elite, a group of artists who didn't like Nashville's polished image and instead wanted to be real and have an edge. He worked with other stars like Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and Johnny Cash. To his fans, Hank Jr. was now truly what he was meant to be. Not just Hank Williams Sr.'s son, but also a person who made his own name, style, and business company. His return from disaster was not only amazing, it was historic. An event that changed him from a son who was having trouble to a country music superstar. As the 1980s came to a close, Hank Williams Jr. was no longer trying to be known. He was a superstar, a voice of defiance, and a symbol of life. He showed that even the worst fall can lead to the best comeback. For every award Hank Williams Jr. won, it seemed like a storm was building up behind him that was just as strong. People who like or dislike Hank Jr. agree on one thing: he has never been afraid to say what he thinks. From the beginning of his work at Vishimosa, an independent artist, he was in the middle of a lot of trouble, which he often liked. Other stars worked hard to make their public image fit Nashville's standards, but Hank Jr. broke all the rules and did what he thought was right, no matter what. In the 1970s and 1980s, he lived a wild life full of loud parties, heavy drinking, and speaking his mind. This added to the idea of the outlaw rebel. His political and social criticism was what kept him in the news more than anything else. During performances and talks, he often said strong things that some people found offensive, while fans either praised or criticized him. In 2011, he caused the most famous scandal when, in a TV interview, he said that President Barack Obama playing golf with House Speaker John Boehner was like Hitler playing golf with Netanyahu. The effects were felt right away. Hank Jr.'s All My Rowdy Friends Are Here had been the theme song for Monday Night Football on ESPN since 1989, but they cut ties with him overnight, ending one of the most famous partnerships in the history of sports entertainment. Hank Jr. said that what he said was protected by free speech, but the damage had already been done. For a lot of his friends, it showed that he wasn't going to give in to political correctness. Others saw it as a waste of time that would ruin a long-term job achievement. In addition to politics, Hank Jr.'s songs often caused people to disagree. Many people liked his songs that praised drinking, shooting, and being stubborn in the country, but some people didn't like them and said they encouraged dangerous behavior. People saw him as a troublemaker who liked to stir things up because he was honest about his problems with addiction and made fun of the people who worked in Nashville. Even though, or maybe even because of, these problems, Hank Jr.'s fans stayed very loyal. For them, he was him. A man who wasn't afraid to tell power the truth and who spoke for people who lived in the country without any filters. People who liked him saw him as a rebel against a world that had become too polished and politically correct, and his fights with the media and enemies seemed to only make their love for him stronger. The problems with Hank Jr. made him hard to predict, and that kept him in the news. Every comment, performance, and public appearance had the potential to start a new firestorm. But maybe that's what has kept him going. Many people in the music business play it safe, but Hank Williams Jr. has always gone for the big. Rude and not afraid to do things his own way. He may have missed out on some chances because of controversies, but they also made him known as one of the most honest and outspoken people in country music history. A man who did everything he sang about and didn't change. Behind the sunglasses, the rebellious look, and the loud songs, Hank Williams Jr. has been through terrible things that would break most people. In public, his life may have been marked by the fact that he lived through the 1975 mountain fall, but in private, the